Welcome back, Buff Nation, and also I'm going to also welcome Oregon Nation and let's see, I don't know, Oklahoma Nation, UCF Nation, let's see, Jackson State Nation, Browns Nation, right? Because that's what we're talking about today is Shedeur versus Gabriel. Who is going to be the victor in this little battle that they're going to have during, mini camps and fall camp? And who's going to be the victor? Who's going to make that roster? Because we do believe there's only going to be 3 quarterbacks that are going to be kept. And then also, is it going to be both rookies that are going to make this team and possibly one of the veterans being tossed off? Plus, we're going to talk about minicamp. We're going to show you some tweets, some video from minicamp from the guys getting to minicamp and seeing their way around the Browns facility and things like that, and also some tape of both quarterbacks. So we will we'll do that and much more here on Alpine Garage Sports. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today, and I'm going to bring in Greg, who is a longtime contributor of this. I guess you could say podcast. We're going to call it the Cold Beer and Conversations podcast. Although I know you probably don't have a beer, but I know I do because I always do.
I just killed my beer. I'm gonna need to re-up.
That's awesome. So we are going to. So Greg has been a longtime contributor to all kinds of websites and forums for Oklahoma Sooners, which obviously Gabriel played for, and that was my wife just calling me there. She knows I'm live right now too, so I have no idea what's going on. But in any case, a longtime contributor to OU and knows a lot about Dillon Gabriel, so I thought I'd bring him on, obviously, because we need a perspective here from Gabriel's camp, because you guys know that I am CNCU through and through, and Shedeur Sanders is my guy, and I believe that there's a lot of things about Shedeur that are going to benefit the Cleveland Browns. But I also know Gabriel because I'm also an OU fan, not quite as much as Greg, but at the same time, I know Gabriel when he played at OU, and then obviously we saw him last year as well because he went deep into the playoff run. Yep. But at this point, we're going to go through number 95 and number 144. And I want to get your opinion on something, Greg. So obviously we know Dillon Gabriel was taken at 95, right? He was not, from what I can tell from watching, I've been watching a lot of Browns podcasts, getting involved in the Browns. And by the way, I have never been a Browns fan. I am a Bronco fan and a Cowboy fan. And because I'm a Bronco fan, I'm specifically from the 80s. I'm specifically not a Browns fan. Because of what they did to us in the late 80s. But they've always had kind of a tumultuous relationship with their players, and it just seems like there's never any continuity there. And if there's ever a scandal or something that needs to be had, it always seems to come out of a few different NFL organizations, including the Browns. And they've been disrespected for a really long time, right? They have a rich history. And in one of the biggest football meccas in the country, central for football, right? And they're looking for a resurrection, and they haven't received that in over 30 years. Yeah. So now we're looking at them taking Gabriel number 95, and not one podcast that I watch before the draft did anybody mention Gabriel. No one mentioned him. I don't even think the Browns mentioned him. They did some private workouts, which I heard about afterwards, right? So they worked out with him privately in Oregon, and apparently he was on their list very high up on the Browns organization. Stefanski had him really high up on his list, and no one knew about it. Although Shedeur alternately was on Cleveland's list for a while. People were talking about it in the CU in the CU rounds over and over again, because we knew that Cleveland was going to be picking very high. We knew Shedeur was going to be a high draft pick.
Right.
And then you had the history of, Coach Prime earlier in the year at the Super Bowl. I believe it was talking about how there were certain teams that they weren't going to allow Shedeur to play for, and it was led to believe that one of those may have been the Cleveland Browns, even though coach and the Cleveland Browns owner have a great relationship. So it's just a big muddled mess, right? So number 5 and number 144. What do you think about Dillon coming in round 3 at number 95? And by the way, Greg, I don't know if you saw Dillon's Instagram, but he was doing some sort of a weird like bird call thing where there were birds. You know how he lives in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And there were birds, I guess, squawking in the background, and he was talking back and forth to him, saying, "What did you just say? You know, whatever parrot, whatever bird that was. You're saying number 95, third round, number 95 to the Cleveland Browns." This was before the draft.
Oh, no way! I did not.
It was. So yeah, I don't know if you saw that or not. This was before the draft. And I mean, this was like, I want to say before the draft. It was during the draft, but before he was drafted.
Yeah.
And so either he kind of projected it, or someone from the Browns reached out and said, "Hey, we're taking you at number 95," which they didn't do for Shedeur, right?
Right.
So what do you have? What do you think about that? First time.
Well, it's interesting that they had that private behind the scenes stuff going with him. Something about Gabriel is there that Stefanski really likes. Listen, I did not know that story about the Insta, but it would not surprise me if they had told him well in advance that they were more interested in him than most teams. And I think I know part of the reason why. Cleveland, as you know, they run a very their offense is very run zone and based on timing plays, and that is something that is Gabriel's strong suit. He has other weaknesses in his game, but he is definitely good on those timing throws and on getting his feet where the feet need to be to throw in a throwing lane, which mitigates some of the issues with his height. As we all know, he's 5'11". That's a kind of a knock against him. But he mitigates that with being in the right place where the throwing lane needs to be. And I think the Browns just saw that and became really enamored with it. And that's probably why he went where he did. Now, don't get me wrong. He's a good quarterback. He was the top, let's see, in the Heisman voting, wasn't he the top quarterback in the Heisman?
He was a top quarterback in Heisman voting.
And I don't know if you've I did a little bit of work on that too. The last 8 quarterbacks who were the top quarterbacks in the Heisman voting, whether they won it or not, or whether they were 3rd or 4th or whatever, the last 8 of those are all current starters in the NFL. And so that would suggest that he's on a good path. He's in pretty good company. You've got names like Daniels and Lawrence and Burrow and Baker Mayfield and some of those guys. Caleb.
Yeah, and some of those won the Heisman though. So
some won.
Right.
And there's a few of them that finished 2nd or 3rd, like Gabriel did. I don't know how much you can read into that stat, but he is in good company, at least in that regard. But
when you go that deep, like number 8, like eight quarterbacks back, that's a pretty good stat, man.
Yeah, absolutely. But back to the point I was making, I think they love his footwork. They love the fact that he's pretty pocket aware and that he can make those timing throws, which aligns pretty well with the type of offense that they like to run there in Cleveland. So that's part of it. Go ahead.
Were you surprised that he was taken ahead of Shedeur?
You know, I was surprised that Shedeur slid the way that he did. That's a good question. Yeah, I would say I was because Shedeur, I believe, has the higher upside, and NFL GMs, they love that upside.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say I was surprised, but the more I look into it, the more it makes some sense. I can see I think the best way to put it is Shedeur. The reason they pick both these quarterbacks, Shedeur has a higher upside. Dillon Gabriel has a higher floor, if you know what I mean by that. There's less risk with Dillon Gabriel in the eyes of the Cleveland Browns, but there's more potential with Shedeur. So they're gonna have this where they let him battle it out, and they're gonna see where it goes from there.
So I actually like the way you put that because I agree with that completely. I think if you are managing a team and that team is somebody that you are, you're potentially going to lose your job this year if for whatever reason this does not go right, which is where Stefanski is at this point because he's been there for a few years. They've had one good season, which wasn't last season, obviously, because they picked
Nope.
very high this year.
Wheels fell off of that season.
Yeah, the wheels
Man.
completely fell
Yeah.
off last season. But when your job is on the line and you're looking for, you want to make. Have you ever watched the movie Draft Day?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I've watched it with you.
Yeah, that's right. So the thing I really like about Draft Day, the one thing that I took away from that when I watched it, many years back, is the fact that the owner's talking about making a splash, and
Yep.
and the fact that part of the draft is about building a team for the future and
Mm-hmm.
filling some holes that you may have, and part of it is about creating a big splash for the fan base and making the fan base really enjoy this process and understand that maybe give some faith into the administration of the team and that the fact that they can actually draft right.
Right.
So and sometimes those splash players don't work out. But for a short term, which is let's get from the draft to the first game, and let's make people as happy as possible. Those splash draft picks are important. The Cowboys had 0 of them this year,
Right.
So I can say that the Cowboys did not make a splash. They were very smart about the way they did the draft, but I walked away as a Cowboys fan thinking, holy crap, we passed on Amarion Hampton,
Yeah.
which really kind of messed me up in the head quite a bit because I thought for sure that's who we were going to take. And I'm a running back guy. We'll talk about the running backs that they took. Actually, the running backs they took are amazing.
Yeah.
In fact, I want to say to Browns fans, if there are any Browns fans out there, and if you are, throw up in the comments that you're a Browns fan, that you guys had probably one of the most amazing drafts this year. I mean, take out the Travis Hunter draft pick by Jacksonville and the obvious Cam Ward draft pick, right? I think that Cleveland had probably one of the best drafts, at least one of the best drafts as far as I'm concerned from the splash perspective. Because you got 2 high-grade quarterbacks. You got them both on the low end, right? So you can still use extra money to build the rest of the team later if they work out. Plus, you got some just fantastic running backs to go along with Ford, who is already a really good running back. So it was a great draft. But back to Shedeur, the whole reason why I think that this whole splash thing was a thing is because they were able to not only get the quarterback that they apparently wanted from what we're hearing from the media and the reaction that they had when they took that call to Gabriel or gave that call to Gabriel. That was a much more emphatic conversation than the conversation that we heard with Shedeur. I don't know if you heard both of those conversations, Greg.
I only heard one of them. Tell me about it.
Which one did you hear?
I heard them talking about Shedeur. I heard some of the buzz back on that, but how did they compare?
So Gabriel's was much more welcome to the team. I hope you love to be a Brown. Looking forward to the future, that kind of thing. Whereas Shedeur's was, you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to work hard.
Yeah, I heard that.
And so there were 2 totally different conversations, and that's what I heard. Those are the conversations that I heard. Those were actual conversations. So I don't know, how anybody would want to or who could deny that. But obviously, Dillon Gabriel was Stefanski's pick, and Shedeur was the splash, right? Gabriel was not a splash. When they drafted Gabriel, probably all of Browns Nation was saying, what, WTF, of all of the quarterbacks that we could have taken, why Dillon Gabriel? Not that he's a bad quarterback, but that they hadn't heard anything. We hadn't heard anything about Dillon Gabriel going anywhere. Did you hear about anybody talking about Gabriel?
There were no
Raiders.
it was definitely an effort on their part to keep it quiet. It was one of those things where they had them rated higher than some others, and they wanted to keep that under wraps. And you know how that works on draft day. Like they want to keep their strategy
They
just
didn't do that
within
with
their.
Shedeur.
What's up?
They didn't do that with Shedeur.
No, I think they have concerns with Shedeur.
Well, what I mean by that is that, we were talking about Shedeur going to the Browns for months. And when they didn't take him in the first round,
Yeah,
when they traded down, and
yeah,
then they didn't take him, they took Mason Graham.
yeah,
That was a shock. It was a shock for me
yeah,
being a Colorado and Shedeur fan. It was a shock for Colorado fans and probably a lot of Coach Prime and Shedeur fans all over the country was the fact that the Browns didn't take him, and then who else didn't take him? The Saints didn't take him, and the Raiders didn't take him, and then the Giants didn't take him, and then the Giants didn't take him again, and
yeah,
that was all in the first round, right?
yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah.
we knew that Shedeur is going to be a splash somewhere, but to fall that low and still get the splash that they wanted in the fifth round, and what I mean by splash is when he was drafted, there was a big reaction from Browns fans. There's a big reaction from Colorado fans. And then, since the draft, which has only been a few weeks, there has been a huge outpouring of emotion towards Sanders that has been, I'm going to say, I'm not going to say unprecedented because there was a lot for, a couple of other notable quarterbacks that they had, including Mayfield. But as a fifth rounder, like just insane amounts of chatter going on throughout the media, not only in Browns land, but everywhere else, that people are talking about Shedeur. I have not heard that about Gabriel.
It's remarkable how much buzz there was around it. I am convinced that 5 years, 10 years from now, we're going to look back on the 2025 draft, and all you'll have to tell people is that was the Shedeur Sanders draft, and everybody will know what draft you're talking about because it encompassed everything. It was the whole conversation around everything. So yeah, I mean the Browns got amazing talent at the level that they drafted Shedeur at. But again, it's got to work itself out on the field. But yeah, I see what they're doing. I think it was surprising. You and I were even texting back and forth on draft day talking about this. I think the other thing that was surprising is just taking two quarterbacks in the draft that close together.
Taking two quarterbacks at all.
Yeah, I mean,
especially when you already have a veteran on your team that's won a Super Bowl,
right?
And you just traded for another, I guess you could say veteran in quotes, because I think this is his fourth season, but definitely has reps in the league, right? So two veterans, you traded for another veteran and a quality veteran, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm not a huge Pickett fan, but he's a good player. But then to take two quarterbacks in the low rounds when you already have Flacco and Pickett, it's unprecedented. Unprecedented may be a big word.
The other thing that I think became clear out of all that is, I mean, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think they view Pickett as a backup. He's like a high quality backup quarterback is what they're seeing in him.
I think yeah.
They're going to look at Flacco as maybe coming in early, and then either Gabriel or Shedeur coming in as the future. And I think that's
Possibly
how they've got it set up.
Well, I think that's what we're about to get into. What does that look like? What does that look like for the Browns? First, let's talk about minicamp, rookie minicamp.
Yep.
When was the last time you really followed a rookie minicamp?
There's never a possible answer on that one. I don't know if I've ever followed.
I think that it's definitely my answer. I mean, I'll actually watch the early stages of training camp for the Broncos.
Yeah.
A little closer, especially last year with the pickup of our awesome quarterback that we absolutely love. But I've never followed a rookie minicamp. I've never followed it on Twitter. I've never waited for videos to drop on the rookie minicamp because essentially rookie minicamp is an orientation. It's like you're starting a new job. You go to orientation. They give you the passwords to the websites. They let you meet the other rookies or, the new players in the camp, and they feed you. They show you the equipment room. They size you up for cleats and helmets and jerseys. And there's really not a lot about it other than just an orientation. Honestly, it's an orientation. But this thing has gotten like seriously like huge.
Yeah.
And what I mean by huge is that they reported, I believe, at noon Eastern time, and or maybe a little bit before noon Eastern time. And by 3 o'clock this afternoon, the Cleveland Browns Twitter account had over 1.5 million views on rookie minicamp videos. So what I did,
you can just feel all the attention and drama that's going to surround this battle. Everybody is going to be watching this. I mean, I don't care who you're a fan for. You're interested at least a little bit on how this is going to pan out. Are you not?
Know it's no, I agree, and it's not just that. I mean, obviously, Shedeur Sanders has a lot to do with this, and I'll get into that here in just a minute. But let me attempt to play a rookie minicamp video. Now, this is Twitter, and they're short snippets. I put them all together so you can kind of see it. But it's Gabriel getting his helmet size, Shedeur making it into the facility, and looking at the practice field for the first time, and then when Shedeur goes to his locker and checks out his locker. And then when we come back, we'll do some commentary on it. Let me see if I can get some sound on this.
Okay.
I guess I'm not.
Can you describe it to us? Because I'm legitimately curious now.
Yeah. So what it did was it showed, and I don't know why it's not playing, but let me see if I can pull this up another way. So Greg, I'm gonna pull you off for just a second.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I can't pull it up for whatever reason. I can't pull it up, which sucks. Okay. But basically, Dillon is getting fitted for his helmet, and if you guys haven't already subscribed to the Cleveland Browns Twitter account, do that. Just type in Cleveland Browns on Twitter. They're great videos. They do little snippets of videos. They did one for Gabriel. They did one. Actually, they did like 5 for Shedeur, which is really funny. So Gabriel, the only one that I saw of Gabriel was him getting his helmet fitted, and he's saying that the ear cups are too small. That he's a 7.5 in an ear cup or something like that. So that was it. But they got Shedeur coming into the facility. They got Shedeur looking at the practice field. They got Shedeur looking at his locker. Yeah, and I want to say they even have a video of Shedeur getting his cleats fitted or something like that. They have Carson Schlesinger on there, the linebacker from UCLA, who I think is a huge, gigantic pickup for him at linebacker. They have him getting fit as well. And then they had Dillon Sampson there for a crawfish boil that they had in what looks like a garage, that they were doing a crawfish boil for the for either just the running backs or for the entire crew. But he is from Louisiana, so they got his reaction.
I was going to say, where was this
Cleveland?
At?
To Cleveland crawfish boil in Cleveland, Ohio. I mean, yeah. So, but he was very. You can tell this guy is, and we'll talk about the running backs here at the end because I want to get your feeling on the running back situation there. But he seems like a very genuine guy. So, but those were great videos, and they make me all that much more excited about tomorrow and Sunday, which we won't see a lot of footage from probably because I don't think they're going to work out their rookies, especially their draft pick rookies, a lot, other than just passing the ball around and doing basic things. No one's going to get hurt in this mini camp. It's basically, like I said, it's just an orientation. So they're just trying to get to know them. But there's going to be some really good video coming from this. And I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. See, look, man, I'm jonesing for Shedeur. I'm pretty sure that there's going to be some banter back and forth between the quarterbacks, the 2 rookie quarterbacks during this thing, which is going to make for some great video. And you know, the Browns are taking a cue from Shedeur on how to run this whole social media thing. Shedeur is going to say, "Hey, Dillon and I are going to throw the ball around, and we're going to banter back and forth, kind of like him and Cam Ward did in the famous
Right.
Cam Ward videos that came out,
Yeah.
to kind of get the hype train going, right? And that's what they want for Cleveland is they want the hype train going. And so this rookie mini camp is not necessarily going to solve anything, but it's going to do a significant amount for the Browns organization, as far as I'm concerned, just from exposure.
Yeah.
The
No doubt.
exposure part of it, yeah.
Getting that attention, getting those like people are gonna they're already tuning in, and that's only gonna dial it up. And I can't say necessarily that was the mission or the intent of the Browns, but it's gonna set up beautifully. I mean, it's gonna be the most watched thing over the next few months, all throughout, even into the preseason. I think it's going to have everybody's attention. So, and you're right. I think Shedeur is probably exceptional at understanding how to do that and make that happen and make that interesting to watch. Everybody has seen that video between he and Cam Ward now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, Cam Ward saying, "Yeah, I can have a 75% completion rating if I just ran bubble screens and things like that all day long." So yeah. But yeah, that was fun, and knowing Shedeur from the fact that I've been covering Colorado for the last couple of years, and knowing his personality and how he is in the social media here in Colorado, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen. Cam Ward is not all that much different. I mean, he plays to the camera and stuff like that, but definitely not as big a social media. I say as social media savvy as Shedeur is. And he just keeps saying in those videos, "I just want to focus on football." And Shedeur is asking him, "Well, what hobbies do you have?" He's like, "I don't have hobbies. I play football." So,
right.
And I think that won him a lot of fans from that standpoint, who like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you have folks like me who, they want to see some flavor in their quarterbacks. And I think Shedeur's got a huge amount of flavor with, everything that he does in the social media scene and stuff like that. But let's get into Shedeur versus Gabriel.
Okay.
So these two guys are obviously, if you were to go by traditional rules, right? I'm going to put that in air quotes, traditional rules for fall camp. Any team that's going to draft two rookie quarterbacks on top of having two veterans already on the team, which like almost never happens, right? One of those two guys is going to go. One of those two guys is going to get traded or released, and one of them is going to survive and be in a third string backup role, right? That's in air quotes the traditional way that the NFL handles these kinds of things. And that, I think, is a plausible way to handle things, knowing that you've got a Super Bowl winning quarterback. You've got a quarterback that's been in the league with a couple of teams now, and has shown to be a solid quarterback, but definitely did not live up to his draft status initially, right? Which is Pickett.
Yeah.
But has another high upside for not a huge contract. Okay, we'll talk about his contract in a minute. There's a little stipulation in his contract which I think might actually cause some problems here at the end of the conversation. But let's just stick with this 3-person, 3-quarterback scenario, one of them being a rookie. And then we're going to go into the other scenario, which is the scenario I think that most people buy into, which is one of the veterans is going to get bounced and both of the rookies are going to get kept. So let's roll into it. And I'm going to give you the floor, Greg, on Gabriel. Go for it. Why would they pick Gabriel outside of the fact that they wanted Gabriel like the son they never had?
Yeah, no, there's reasons for this. And again, we've touched on this a little bit. There was a lot of private back and forth between Gabriel and the Browns, and I think Stefanski kind of fell in love with them a little bit. But there are solid statistical things that I know that they are looking at. The knock against Gabriel is the smaller size, the 5'11". That's not to say that you can't make that work in the NFL. There's examples right now of it working in the NFL. But
they're shorter quarterbacks.
But one thing that's crucial and that's key is understanding different arm angles and how to manipulate your throws around some of the offensive line and defensive linemen that are in your way. and Dillon at 3 schools now, at UCF and definitely at OU, and he did it this past year at Oregon as well. He has shown the ability to do that. He's very creative with how he can change his arm angles and move a little bit, feel pressure from behind, and execute the throw, or throw it away when it needs to be thrown away. And I want to put a little bit of a pin in that statement I just made, because I come back to that one here in a little bit. But I think that's something that they liked a lot with Gabriel. I already talked a little bit about how he fits really well with the timing-based routes and the run zone offense that Cleveland likes to do. That's going to fit really naturally with what he ran at Oregon, and also what he ran to we ran it sometimes at OU as well, and he played really well in that type of system. When you get down to the kind of the hard data, something that I noticed and really highlighted was how each of these quarterbacks, Shedeur and Gabriel, how they did when they were under pressure. And I think I think that's where why Gabriel went where he did versus Shedeur with regard to the Cleveland Browns. I know you know the stats. If there's a sack on a drive, it kills the drive over 90% of the time in the NFL. Those defenses are too good. You give them a sack and put them in a second and long, third and long situation, and those defenses in the NFL will feast on it. Dillon Gabriel ranked among the top of the quarterbacks in the draft at avoiding sacks by either throwing the ball away or avoiding the pressure. And Shedeur did not rank as well in that. Now, that's not to say he can't improve on that and get better. And we all know that the offensive line that he had at Colorado was part of the issue. But I don't know if you follow the stats on PFF. They have a good system where they look at sacks that could have been avoided through quarterback decisions and sacks that couldn't have been avoided. And when you put it into numbers like that, the percentages, Gabriel was in the top 3 in the entire draft at avoiding a sack under his own circumstances. Sacks, if it was avoidable, he found a way to avoid it, either by ditching the ball or by moving out of the pocket. Shedeur was in the bottom 5 of the draft with that. And I think that probably was part of the concern there. Strong play action player. I wrote that down as well about Gabriel, and I mean, that's going to do well in any system. He also, the other thing that I think never really got brought up, I didn't hear anybody talk about this, but Gabriel's got one of the quickest releases in the draft. I think it was actually rated a little bit faster than Cam Ward's, and we all know how important that is as well.
Are you talking about the time to throw?
Yes. No,
yeah,
I'm talking about the time between he starts his throw and finishes his throw from start to finish.
Okay.
Right? It's a very
Shedeur definitely has a lot longer like throwing a cadence.
Yeah,
it's definitely a lot. It's definitely a lot longer, and I say a lot longer. It's not like it's seconds longer, but it definitely is longer. I agree with that.
Gabriel was pressured on 96 dropbacks last year. He took 19 sacks. PFF said that of those 19 sacks, 7 were pretty much his fault. He could have avoided them if he had wanted to. That's 36%, which is, like I said, third lowest in the draft class. With Shedeur, it was 168 dropbacks. Now, that's more of a mark against the offensive line, but out of those 168, there were 41 sacks, of which 17 were considered to be kind of on him for not throwing the ball away or for not seeing the pressure that was coming. Another thing I heard, and I only heard one guy talk about this, but I thought it was interesting. I listened to him for about 5 minutes talk about this. With Shedeur, he has a tendency when there's pressure coming, which was a lot last year at Colorado. When there's pressure coming, he has a tendency to retreat back a little bit in the pocket. And then when you end up taking the sack, you've given up an additional 5 yards or so with that. And that is something that was highlighted as a concern. Now, like I said, I didn't hear anybody else talk about that. I only heard one guy talk about that when I was doing some of the research on that. But I thought that was an interesting point as well, talking about that quarterbacks are taught to try not to give up any more than you have to give up in pocket. Try not to backpedal to avoid that pressure. And obviously, when you're backpedaling, it puts you in poor position for making an accurate throw as well. So that was a little bit of a consideration. That's more of a con against Shedeur than any kind of pro for Gabriel. But I think that's what they're looking at. They, again, back to the thing that you and I were saying at the beginning of this. Shedeur is the better talent. He's got the higher upside, but he's also got the lower floor. He could be the best quarterback that's taken in the 2025 draft. Shedeur could be. I don't know that many people will make that argument for Dillon Gabriel. But I also think that Dillon Gabriel's floor is a lot higher. I mean, you have less risk involved with Dillon Gabriel because of how he fits the system and how good he is at some of these timing throws that Cleveland loves to do as well. So I think that's what they're thinking. And not to put too fine of a point on him. I mean, obviously, if they took one quarterback 2 rounds ahead of the other one, somebody in that room feels like that quarterback is a better fit for their system or is better for them overall.
So are you saying that that Dillon was taken ahead of Shedeur specifically and only because of football acumen and prowess on the football field? Or do you think that there was other politics involved?
I think you can. I'll put it this way. I think the numbers are there to support the football acumen. Yeah, because and again, it's because of some of these. When you look a little bit deeper into their style of play, there's some flags with Shedeur that they're concerned about. Now that doesn't mean they can't get worked out, but I think they're going to have to get worked out before he can be a starter in the NFL. You know how it is. Like every NFL team is really good. The worst team's defense is a really good defense. So, it's next level for all these guys.
No, I agree. Now, first of all, I want to say this, that I think that Shedeur is the better quarterback. Now, I don't, at the same time, I'm not a Dillon Gabriel hater. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be a Dillon Gabriel hater because I like Dillon Gabriel. I think he's a good quarterback. I thought that he fit Oregon's system really well. I thought he fit Oklahoma's system really well. Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge quarterback guy from that standpoint. I'm more of a running game guy. So when you're talking to me about how you win football games, as far as I'm concerned, if you don't have a running game, you can't be a serious contender, especially in the NFL. You can't be a serious contender anymore anyway, okay? Because at some point in the NFL's history, the passing teams were dominant, but anymore it's not that way. Obviously, we saw that last year, right?
Right.
So you have to develop a running game. Well, one of the things that Dillon Gabriel had that Shedeur did not have was a running game. And it wasn't, I can go down the road into the politics of CU football, which I'm not going to do on this podcast because every one of my CU faithful understand what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that we had poor running backs. It was that we didn't have a running scheme. We weren't a running scheme. We built our scheme around Shedeur. We knew Shedeur was a great passer and a great quarterback. So therefore we put everything on him and we just asked him to run with it. Okay. Which is a lot of pressure that Gabriel did not have. Gabriel didn't have that kind of pressure. He could hand the ball off, 55% of the time and he would be fine. In fact, 68% of his passes, of Gabriel's passes, were within 9 yards. So when you're talking about that with Shedeur, his was 62. Now they were close, 62, 68.
Right.
But what that tells you is that Shedeur had a better long game from the standpoint of he had to get the ball down the field a lot because, we got ourselves into situations where our run game was going to help drain the clock. We had to create some longer passing in order to get some of those games won, and it worked. If you look at the Baylor game from last year, That was all one on Shedeur's arm. Every
Yeah.
little bit of that was one on Shedeur's arm.
He had a fantastic.
And
Yeah.
right, and that really kind of kicked off a really good year for us last year. All that what I'm trying to say with all of this is that it's not anything that you can calculate, but the fact that Shedeur is going into a system with the Browns where he is not going to have to be depended on from his arm standpoint all of the time. I mean, for him, it's going to be like he's on vacation as far as I'm concerned, because he had to have all of the pressure. He had to make all of the throws every single time with very little run game. And he did it with ease. In fact, he was almost perfect on his intermediary routes, which is what the NFL is built on. Right? The intermediary routes is what the NFL is built on, and he is damn near perfect in those throws, right? He's good in the pocket outside of the fact that you were talking about him, I want to use the word drifting. Shedeur did have a problem with drifting back in the pocket. And a lot of that was just due to the fact of the way the pressure was coming. The pressure was coming at him from the inside.
Right.
So, when he had pressure from the inside a lot of times, and I'm going to say it was even pressure from all sides, right? The only direction he could go was back. There wasn't a lot. When you look at Gabriel under pressure, he usually steps up into the pocket and turns it into a running play because he's a really good running quarterback. We know that. Shedeur didn't really find that part of his game, in my opinion, until the latter part of the year last year. And then when he did find it, he was pretty good at it. Now, he's not as fast as Dillon. I'm going to say Dillon is way faster than Shedeur. Shedeur is very stiff when he runs. It's almost like watching Tom Brady run, right? But
you would never think that he was Deion Sanders' son when you watch him run.
No, that's my point. I was like, where did the genes go?
I know,
this, right?
They went to Shiloh.
Oh my God, I am so glad he did not run a 40 because that would have tanked his career, I think. But much like Brady, he won't have to run very much. And looking at their draft this year, the Browns draft this year with Quinshon Judkins and who else did they pick? Dillon Sampson, I think.
They got that kid
out of
from
Tennessee.
Yeah.
The SEC Offensive Player of the Year. 1,400 yards.
Oh my gosh.
That guy, with two guys like that, plus you have Ford coming back from last year, who was on my fantasy team last year, and did a really good job at a backup role on my fantasy team. With those three guys,
fantasy team.
I know, because I whooped your butt, man. But my point is that he's not going to have to be the scrambling quarterback that Dillon was at Oregon last year, because he's going to have a better running game, I think, this year than the Browns have seen in years. And they need a quarterback who can manage the game, and they need a quarterback who can make those intermediate passes with a high degree of skill. And I think that Shedeur is that guy.
Yeah.
There is one other thing that I wanted to bring up about Shedeur that is not football related. Both of them, I think, have great leadership ability. You hear a lot about Gabriel's leadership, the fact that he's been with 3 different teams in college, the fact that he did well with all of those teams, right? He even took Oregon to an undefeated season last year, undefeated regular season last year. He is a leader in that locker room. Shedeur also a leader in that locker room. So I think from that standpoint, they kind of match up. But Shedeur has the heartstrings of not only the owner, but also of the fan base.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about that, you have as far as I'm concerned, you have the owner right here. You have the fan base right here. And you have the administration right here, right? When you have those outside bookends, they smash that middle as far as I'm concerned. Okay. If Gabriel and Shedeur play equally, okay, let's say that they play equally, and it's possible that they may, because they're both very accurate quarterbacks. Last year, Shedeur was the number 1 in accuracy, I think, with a 74.2.
Yeah.
And Gabriel was number 3 with like a 72.8.
Yeah. They're almost,
I mean, it was like ridiculous how close they were. So let's just say that through camp, they both play excellently. and one does not shine above the other. They both do it extremely well. When you're talking about who has the strings to the fan base, Shedeur has the strings to the fan base. That is who they're going to be calling for, in my opinion. Gabriel is not going to be called for. Shedeur is going to be called for.
Have you
Okay.
seen the jersey sales for Shedeur?
Yeah,
Among
number
rookies?
for a little while there, he was number 1
Yeah,
when he was number 2,
yeah, yeah.
and now he's number 12. So you got to start all over again. So he's going to like double his numbers, man. As
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, right? I don't know how many number 5 jerseys that the Browns sold for Gabriel, but I'm sure it wasn't many. And now they're not going to sell that many more of the number 8 jersey. Or I'm sorry, number 8 the first time, number 5 the second time. He's number 5 for the Browns now.
Okay, yeah.
Neither one of the guys got their numbers, so they didn't get their numbers from college.
Right.
But and then I can't remember who got number 2 for the Browns. I'm trying to remember who that was, but it is it was a free agent. Golly, who was that? It was a free agent defensive back from. Oh geez, I don't know. Somebody throw it up in the comments for me. Anyway, that I know of has never worn the number 2, but just chose the number 2. And it looks like the way the Browns did it was the veterans obviously keep their numbers unless they want another one. Carter, thank you very much, Carter.
Yeah,
that's right. So he's a receiver. That's right. And you know what I was thinking of? I wasn't thinking of corner. Or defensive back. I was thinking of a returner. So he's a really good returner. And receiver, really tiny guy though, like super, like 5'8", 5'9", 185, 190, something like that. And I saw an interview with him, from last year when they were talking about his number changing, and he wanted a number. He got the number 11, but he wanted a smaller number than 11 because he thinks that numbers correlate to the size of the person. And because he's a small person, he needs a small number. So obviously he took number 2, right? Because that's one of the smallest numbers you can get. So, you know, when you're looking at it from that standpoint, Carter probably took that number 2 because it was the smallest number he could get, knowing that he wanted the smallest number he could get because he's one of the smallest guys on the team. But in my reality, okay, and this is my reality, I'm thinking that this guy has been in the NFL for a while. He's been in the NFL since 2016, from what I know. And he knows that Shedeur's coming in. Shedeur's going to get number 2. Regardless of what happens, he's going to get number 2. So all he has to do is take number 2. Shedeur pays him for the number 2. He comes out with a little bit of extra cash and makes everybody happy, including all the Browns fans. And Carter becomes a hero, and he makes a little bit of money on the side, right? So, but as far as I'm concerned, Shedeur will be a number 2 this year. It will happen before the end of training camp. Carter is not going to hold out on that number 2. He's worn number 30, number 11, and now number 2 in his career. So that number 2 doesn't, I don't think, mean a whole lot to him compared to what it does to Shedeur. But I digress. I had to go through the number thing. He's squatting. Jamel around the world said that Carter is squatting on the number. That's a good way to put it. We're going to coin that term right here. Jamel, you coined that term right here. Is Carter is squatting on the number. But yeah, he's not going to be on there for long because Shedeur is going to figure out a way to get it from him.
Let me ask you another question and get your honest opinion on this in terms of, is there any concern about the fact that the last 2 years Shedeur has been throwing to arguably the best football player in the country for 2 years in a row, who, I mean, he's already entering the NFL as, you know, has a just incredible upside. Of course, I'm talking about Travis Hunter. But do you have any concern about the fact that there were times when Travis Hunter made incredible plays to catch passes from Shedeur that your average wide receiver in the NFL is probably not going to catch?
No, I don't. And the reason why I don't is I know that there's been a lot of play out there about Travis compensating for some of Shedeur's throws, and that is 100% true.
Yeah.
But the throws that he had to adjust for were the ones where Shedeur is being swallowed up by a defense
Yeah.
and threw it up knowing that Travis would go and get it. So when I say that, the Browns have some pretty good receivers, and Jerry Jeudy is probably, I would consider to be one of their best receivers that they picked up.
He's great.
And
He played at Alabama.
yeah,
He played for Denver, right? So
that's
he's
right.
been a good good wide
And
receiver.
yeah, and I'm going to say at this point that Travis at his best in college, he was still probably not as good as some of the receivers in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that I may get roasted in the comments for that, but I think that's a true statement is that,
It's true.
there are some receivers in the NFL. I mean, you're talking, these guys have been playing now,
CeeDee
including
Lamb,
college.
some
Yeah.
of these
For
guys,
12 years,
yeah.
right? Their routes are down. They know the quarterbacks, they know the
Mm-hmm.
system. And they're just grown men at this point, right? Grown men's strength, grown men's speed is different than you are when you're 21, and especially when you're a professional athlete. So when you think that he's not going to have Travis, it doesn't matter. He's going to have Jerry Jeudy. He's going to have a lot of other. He's going to have a couple of great running backs coming out of the backfield. He's going to have a great tight end and Harold Fannin Jr. to throw to. So there's going to be some really good players out there that are going to replace Travis. And it's not going to be just Travis now. It's going to be, and not that it was just Travis at Colorado, because we had a great receiver core.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
But yeah, this is the NFL, and I think he'll have plenty of targets. I think he'll be fine. I don't think that's an issue.
Yeah.
What else are you going to throw at me about him? I tell you what, bust me on Shedeur right now. Do it. Throw another thing out.
I've got all kinds of. Okay, so again, well, should we go back to the sacks? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, we can talk about sacks. Sure.
I mean, Shedeur
I'm not afraid of sacks.
in sacks, right?
He did. Yes. So if I'm a GM of a team, of an NFL team, I am probably at this point going to really watch the tape and see that Shedeur probably caused, I don't even remember what percentage you said, but I'm thinking probably 30% of the sacks were on Shedeur. Okay. Mm-hmm. Probably at least 30% of the sacks were on Shedeur because he was backing out. What's the word I used earlier? Drifting. He was drifting out and causing himself issues. But in the NFL, it's because and this is what I'm going to say, it's because we did not execute a running game. If we had a running game, okay, if our OC had really put some effort into the run game last year, Shedeur would have not had the same kind of pressure, and he probably would have had very Dillon-like sack stats, let's say, right. If we had stuck to the run, we had some good running backs last year at Colorado. There was no doubt we had good running backs. I 100% would not put this on the running backs. I would 100% put this on the scheme. And the fact that we just thought for whatever reason that Shedeur is going to be able to carry it. And when Shedeur holds onto the ball a little longer than he should, it's causing some sacks. So in the NFL, that's not going to be a problem. They're going to, not only are they going to,
especially with the Browns. I mean, Browns run the ball more than most teams do, and the Browns love to run the ball, and they've got a good stable of running backs. So, both of these, either one of these quarterbacks, if they get in that situation, they're going to love this run game, and they're going to love the fact that there's not quite as much pressure in Cleveland on the quarterback to make all these amazing throws, because that's not who the Cleveland Browns are. They want to win through defense and run game. So, not to put too fine a point on it, that's why Flacco right now is the odds-on favorite in Vegas to be the starter, because he's not going to be making all those throws, but he knows how to work around a system where it's a run-first scheme. And, and so I think that's kind of an advantage or a pro to both of these rookies coming in, is that they're coming into a system where maybe that'll help a little bit, where it doesn't put quite as much on the shoulders. Maybe gives them a little bit better chance of starting some games their rookie year.
No, I agree. And that's what I wanted you to bring up, was the sack thing, because I think the sack thing is overblown. I think that it is a 1 year or 2 year issue that they had, specifically because there's a lot of politics in Colorado. There's a lot of politics in every organization, in every team. And our team was built around a couple of guys And we had to pay the price for that in some respects, and that was sacks. You're
Yeah.
not going to see that from him this year. It's
Right.
not going to be part of his game. You don't have to worry about that, and it's a thing of the past, as far as I'm concerned. Now let's go to the other option, which is we both agree that Dillon Gabriel is a capable quarterback, and we both agree that Shedeur Sanders is a capable quarterback. Right?
Right.
They took two quarterbacks in the draft this year, which is unprecedented,
Mm-hmm.
and they have two, really good, as far as I'm concerned, really good veterans on their team. One, obviously, about to draw Social Security, and the other one is not even outside of his rookie contract yet.
Oh, I didn't know
So,
that. Is that right about Pickett? He's not
yeah,
outside his good. Wow.
Pickett is in, from what I can gather, he's in year 4.
Yeah.
This year, he's in year 4, which is about $3 million ish. And if they pick up a 5th-year option on Pickett, and this is where I'm going to put the knife in Pickett's back. Right if they pick up the 5th-year option on Pickett, it's $22.5 million.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's not worth that.
Okay, so and really he has 1 year to prove that,
Yeah.
honestly, right? So as far as that's concerned, he's worth 3 to you this year. He's worth 22.5 next year. And that's kind of where I stand on this is I personally feel this, Greg. I think that, and we know that, I don't know if you know this or not, but the Browns their draft was just awesome this year, and they picked up additional first-round picks next year. And regardless of how good they do this year, they're going to have a great draft next year, and they could pick up one of these awesome quarterbacks that are coming out, like Nussmeier and I mean, who knows? I don't know if you think Manning's coming out or not, but Manning's not going to drop very far if he does. But I think he's going to stay in for another year. But there's a lot of really good quarterbacks coming out next year. So this is the way that I kind of see. I lend myself to the thought of this: is they're going to take one of the two veterans, and they're going to make that veteran their starter, assuming that camp goes the way that camp's supposed to go. And then they're going to keep the two rookies, and they're going to decide between the two of them based on what happens with their veteran as to who takes over the starting role. Because if it's Flacco, I don't know that Flacco can make it through a whole nother season without getting injured.
That's a concern, right?
He's older, right? And who knows? Maybe they pull him if they're not doing well, and they put in one of the other rookies, and then they put in the other rookie, right, to kind of see what happens. Plus, you also have the preseason to show him off as well.
Yeah.
And then you drop Pickett, right? You figure out how to trade him, even though you traded in for him this year. You trade out for him this year as well. Someone will pick him up probably, and someone that has an injury or something like that will pick him up. And then you run with a Super Bowl winning veteran and two quarterbacks that most people think could be long-term quarterbacks in the NFL.
Right.
And that's the way that I see it. Tell me what you think.
Okay, I'm on a similar line to yours, but I think it's more likely that they keep Pickett than Flacco. Because Flacco's not going to make it a full season, and everybody knows that. And they need someone who can make it a full season until they can get this figured out between these two rookies. I mean, otherwise you're putting yourself in a situation where Flacco gets injured in week 3, and what do you have left on your roster? You've got two rookie quarterbacks. And that's a bad situation to be in. And then their wheels are going to start falling out. And, I think that Stefanski is going to view that as more like, I mean, we all know Flacco's past his prime. He still can he could probably coach the place himself. But I think Pickett might be their starting guy. I know that's not the sexiest answer, but Pickett's probably their starting guy from week 1. And then they're going to work these younger guys in as it goes on. It wouldn't surprise me, too, if one of the rookies gets cut, before it's all said and done. I mean, to use your word, it's unprecedented. It's unusual to have this many quarterbacks in a quarterback room going into camp. I mean, and almost knowing that one of them's got to go. I mean, I guess you could carry 4 quarterbacks, but why would you do that?
I don't think they will. No,
No,
I don't know
there's
that
no way.
anybody will. I mean, you're gonna need some more depth pieces in some other areas,
Right.
and so
You're
right.
you're hurting
So
your team in other ways if you do that. So somebody's got to go. To
yeah.
me, Pickett has the more long term upside than Flacco does,
Oh,
and so
obviously. Yeah.
the long term upside is what'll keep Pickett around. I know. I just said this earlier that Vegas has the odds on that Flacco will be the starter on day one, but of the 4, maybe he's the one who is most likely to not be on that roster on week 1.
Yeah. So what do you think about the rest of their pickups? Let's talk about Quinshawn Junkins
Yeah,
and Dylan Sampson. Which one of those two, or do you think this is going to be a 50-50 split, kind of like the way that I don't know. It kind of feels like the Browns are kind of taking a page from Ohio State for this next year, and they're going to maybe run both of these running backs with a little bit of Ford in there as well.
yeah,
50-50 reps. I mean, all three or both of those running backs that they picked up are both 1,000-yard rushers last year.
yeah. Quick, name for me how many NFL teams are left that are just running one bell cow guy at
Right.
running back anymore. It's just not happening anymore. The trend is there's a lot of good running backs out there. I mean, look at the depth of the running backs in this 2025 draft. You get 2 or 3 really good high end running backs, and you rotate them in and out. Somebody gets hurt, that's okay. We'll go down to these 2 guys until you heal up. That's the new system, and that's what they drafted for. It's interestingly a, a, a different from the way they did the quarterback. When they draft a second quarterback, everybody was like, "I can't believe they drafted 2 quarterbacks." With running backs, they drafted that Tennessee kid in what was that 6th round, and everybody was nodding, saying, "Yep, that makes a lot of sense." I mean, because that's the way the systems are nowadays. And listen, I love Jerome Ford. I think he's going to be the starter, and he's a great running back as well. He doesn't have that high end speed, but he's a tough runner and he's a system runner, and he fits Cleveland really, really well. So, but to answer your question, between those guys, I mean, I love Sampson at Tennessee. I
Me
can't
too.
believe he
Me
fell
too.
that far.
Samson is my guy. He is
Yeah,
my guy.
I mean, I know he was picked later, but he is a fantastic running back,
Mm-hmm.
and he's built for the NFL. I think I just see really great things in that guy. So I don't
Yeah.
know how much he is as a pass catcher out of the backfield. And that's the only thing I would have to look at a little bit more deeply between those two to see how they fit in Cleveland. But what
Well,
did
no,
you think? Go ahead.
I think stat wise, I think they're going to be really even, and I think I love Judkins just from his personality and what he was able to do
Yeah,
at Ohio State. Trayvon was a huge person to go up against on the same team, right?
right.
And they ended up almost dead heat. I want to say that Judkins was at 1,060 and Henderson was like 1,014 or something like that. So they're really close. Henderson had a 7.4 average per carry,
Mm,
and Judkins was a little bit less. I think it was like close to 6. It was like 5.8. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but Judkins was also a short yardage runner.
yeah,
So they used him a lot on the goal line, and he has more touchdowns than Henderson had. So that makes sense that you would see something like that. So
yeah.
maybe that's what they're doing is they're picking up Sampson for like the everyday carries and picking up Judkins for the harder reps. Who
What did
knows?
what did you think about that number 1 overall pick on the Browns? I mean, where they're going with that?
I love Mason Graham. I
Miles Garrett's
love
got to
Mason
be
Graham.
happy.
Yeah. Oh my God. They're going to have such a freaking awesome defense this year.
Yeah,
Like I said before, I'm not a Browns fan. I've never been a Browns fan. I don't know that I've ever really watched a Browns game if Dallas or Denver was not connected to it. But last year Dallas started out playing the Browns first game and blew them out.
yeah,
So, but this year, for whatever reason, man, when in the Colorado on my Colorado podcast, we were going round and round. There wasn't a single person that I talked to either at a game or in my podcast or online, in forums, on Twitter, whatever, that wanted Shedeur to go to the Browns. And I think most of it was just because we're so far west that there's not a lot of Browns fans out here, right? So we wanted him to go to the Cowboys, or wanted him to go to the Raiders, or wanted him to go to the Broncos, somewhere a little closer where we could actually maybe go to a game or something a little bit easier. But after being picked up by the Browns and all the drama that went along with it, I almost feel like it was a blessing for fans. I know it was a blessing for him, but it was a blessing for fans. And I don't mean just Browns fans. I mean fans of football that love to pick up a new team. I love to pick up a new team, whether it be college or NFL, because of a player, a coach, a scenario where I can pick them up and I can root for them for that season. Yeah. And the Browns are one of those things. I mean, that's definitely a very bandwagon mentality, but these teams a lot of times live on bandwagon fans. That's where a lot of revenue comes from.
Isn't that partly what makes fantasy football work the way it does? You pick up a guy in your draft that year, and all of a sudden you're a Dolphins fan.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a great way to put it.
Seahawks fan that year, and I always like to joke about the fact that I can turn on an NFL game and I'm rooting for a team no matter what, because one of my fantasy players is on that team, like either one or the other one, or my opponent. And so, you're exactly right. I don't think that's bandwagon. I think that's just being a good fan, knowing who the players are and rooting for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely can tell you that I'm going to be a Browns fan this year. I was glued to mini camp videos that were coming out all day long. It was impressive to see these. And again, never watched a single one of them before, but I'm going to be glued tomorrow. I'm going to be glued on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be watching this thing to the end. And I've even picked out my Browns jersey that I'm going to get. I already have the colors and everything. I just got to decide whether I want the 2 or I want the 12. Because he's 12 right now, but right. I'm betting, I would bet if there was a way I could bet on him having the 2 by the end of the year, that I would say he would be the 2 by the end, or 2 by the beginning of the season. I think he's going to be 2 by the beginning of the season. If that's possible to do, I think it is. I think he's going to be 2.
I'm writing that down right there. We will come back to that one and we'll see on it later. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Greg, what else do you have for us tonight?
I mean, that's all I got on Shedeur versus Gabriel, but I'd love to talk about anything you want to talk about just in terms of the draft, or who's going to do well, who's going to be the most surprising team in the NFL this year, who's going to surprise, because it happens every year. Somebody comes kind of out of nowhere and does better than everybody expected. Somebody's going to.
Yeah, let's talk about Jacksonville. What do you think about Jacksonville this year?
God,
the Trevor Lawrence to Travis Hunter connection, is that going to be what they need?
Travis Hunter, I mean, how in love with that guy I am. I think he was the best player on the Buffaloes. He may be the best player on the Jaguars team right now. I'm not kidding. I absolutely love that player, and that was an incredible pickup for them. I think he's transformative. It's going to be fascinating, though, to see with all of the questions of playing both ways, or if he's going to focus in, if they're going to talk him into focusing in on defense or on offense. I don't know that they've come out with any strong statement either way on that. And I don't know if you've heard anything about that or not, as to whether or not they intend to use him primarily as a defensive player or as an offensive player. But that guy can do it all. It's fantastic. I think Jacksonville could come out of nowhere this year and do a lot better than people think. They've already got a great running back. They've got a great quarterback. So, they're close. I think they're closer than what their record showed.
Yeah, I think that from what I've heard, they're giving him the option to do both. They want him to do both. I think he's primarily going to be a receiver, and he's going to play some defensive back on key plays. is
Good.
the way I think, the way I personally
Like a
think that they're
nickel
going to
package.
use him.
They'll put a nickel or a dime package in, and he'll be in on
Something
that.
like that. Yeah, he'll be on key plays on defense. But I've also heard the opposite. I've heard that people think that he's going to be primarily defense because he is a lockdown corner. Everybody
I
knows he
mean,
is.
do you not love him as a defensive back? You can put him
Mhm.
anywhere. You can put him at free safety. You can put him on a corner and lock down the opposing team's best
Mhm.
receiver. How valuable is that to Jacksonville? Well, that's why they
Yeah,
drafted him where they did. So
no, I 100% agree with that. And if he played corner, let's say he played every rep at corner and he only played a third of the reps at receiver, I I know that every Jacksonville Jaguar fan would be happy, but I think that everybody wants to key in on that whole Lawrence to Hunter connection
mhm,
there,
right,
and have it just explode. I think the Jaguars are a team to look at this year, and I think it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm a homer for Travis.
yeah,
But I've always liked Trevor Lawrence. I've always thought he was a good
yep,
quarterback. I just thought he needed the right setup in order to make that turn, and I think he might have it this year. They had a good draft. They
yeah.
did a good job
They
with the
did.
draft this year. Yeah,
They
pretty
did
solid draft.
fantastic. It helps when you have that high of a pick, but still,
Mhm.
they didn't botch it like some teams do sometimes. I mean, they were fantastic. In fact, I was wanting to look at some of their other picks. I got to scroll down to it, but who else did Jacksonville get this year? Do you know? Can you think off the top of your head? There we go.
Oh, I've got
Travis Hunter.
Caleb Branshaw. Yeah.
Yeah, the corner out of Tulane.
Mhm.
They got a lineman. They've got that Virginia Tech running back. That was a
Yep.
little bit of a surprise. That
Mhm.
linebacker out of Notre Dame, who's so good, that Kaiser. He fell all the way to the fourth draft. That's a good pick. I
That
mean,
running back, that running back. Did you see his? Did you see anything on his combine?
no, I only saw his
His
highlights from his season, but
his combine was that's where he got. That's why he got drafted so high.
wait,
His combine was insane.
what he
It
hit
was
in
insane. This guy is a freaking stud.
the
Just an absolute monster. And I think that one pick alone probably makes everything for him outside of Travis, of course. Um,
Well, the thing
I'm
is,
also
they've got that. I can't think of his name right now. The running back out of Clemson, who's so good, who's playing for them right now. I mean, he's their clear starter, right? Why can I
I
not think
would
of
think
his
so,
name?
yeah.
You know who I'm talking about? Why can I not think
Yeah,
of
I
him?
do. I don't know. I can't remember his name either.
Let me look it up.
I'm not really
Help us
huge.
out in the comments.
I think that probably one of the biggest
ATM,
draft. Yeah, Etienne. That's right.
Travis ATM.
Um, I think that the Broncos. I'm really high on the Broncos draft this year too, and primarily just because they, my biggest thing was that we needed a running game, a little bit better running game to go with Bo Nix and what he did for us last year, and RJ Harvey from UCF.
Yeah.
We got to see him last year at the University of Colorado, and that guy is the real deal. And I think he was an absolute steal where they got him, and
Mm.
I think he's going to do big things for the Broncos this year. So, just wanted to shout out RJ Harvey at the Broncos because that is something that I'm really looking forward to this year.
How do you think the Broncos are going to be this year? Like, what
Oh,
would you?
they're definitely going to be playoff contention easily.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a Bo Nix guy. I was a Bo Nix guy last year. When I was in a bar during the draft, and I think my wife and I, Mandy and I, were the only people in the bar that jumped up and screamed when we drafted Bo Nix. And everybody else in the bar, it seemed to me that nobody wanted Bo Nix last year at the at the Denver Broncos, the fans anyway. But it was very quick into training camp when all that changed, and now everybody obviously is on the Bo Nix train. So,
Yeah.
so that's a great deal. Well,
He's.
Greg, we're into an hour and 21 minutes,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, we have absolutely beat this thing to death, I think. But what kind of parting words do you have for Shedeur and Gabriel?
Hey man, whatever happens, it's going to be one of the funnest preseason. Have you ever been more excited for a
No,
preseason or for a camp?
no.
That
I've
right
never
there
been this
does a lot
excited.
in and of itself.
Right.
That's what these two guys are bringing is excitement to things that people are normally not even conscious of or excited about. So I just love it from that standpoint. I love that we're going to get to watch this unfold. I love that there's a reason to be interested in the preseason. So, whatever happens, this is good for football.
I agree. Good for football, good for fans, good for Cleveland, and good for the Colorado Buffaloes, because we get to see our guys shine in with a team that, quite frankly, was kind of like we are when they came here. We were destitute. They came in, they fixed it. Shedeur did, Travis did. Now we are flying high. They're going to go. One of them's going to go to Cleveland, a destitute team, and help raise them. And then Travis is going to go to the Jaguars, a destitute team, and help raise them. So, I mean, it can't get any better than that. I'm really looking forward to it. Greg, thank you very much for joining me today on the Cold Beer and Conversations podcast from Alpine Garage Sports. We're going to do this again as often as we can, buddy. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. We talk about Colorado football most of the time. We do talk about, college football a lot. And now we're going to be talking about NFL football more, because we have some of our guys, both from the University of Oklahoma, Oregon, Colorado, and other schools as well, in the big leagues, going for their, fighting for their survival, fighting for their spot. And it's fun to watch. That's a wrap from Alpine Garage Sports. From Greg and Chris, we will see you in the next video.